The documentary film Shadows of Kings Park takes an inside look into the history and current state of the Kings Park Psychiatric Facility. Filmmaker Brian Sansevero says this was originally a student project that developed into an award-winning film.
I was taking a documentary filmmaking class, and everyone in the class had to pitch an idea, come up with something that we wanted to document. And just growing up on Long Island, I was always drawn to this place from these stories I've heard. I've seen it before, and my idea was to do some history on this place, find out about it, what the situation is with it, and just I wanted people to see what I've heard and seen. At first I started off with going to the Kings Park Heritage Museum, where they have this whole museum at the middle school in Kings Park in the school district, and it's set up for people that want to go there, do some research, learn some history. They have all artifacts taken from the time, from different eras. And yeah, the people that were running the place were great. Steve Weber, who pretty much runs the museum, he just, he helped me with everything, pictures, I had access to some of the buildings, to film in some of the buildings.
Sansevero describes what it was like going through these abandoned historic buildings.
Very dark, it had a bad smell, decaying, everything decaying. It was very creepy, but dark, hard because we had to, with the camera, it's hard to get the right lighting, but certain rooms, they were just, it was just such, it was kind of beautiful, like it was decayed, but just, seeing these things just lying there, I was like, this is something that it's going to look good on film. This is something that people would want to see. Like patients' files, different papers, books, just floors covered with books. There's a room where they have a mural painted by one of the patients, and that's just still on the wall, and it's decaying, and it's very creepy, but it's also, it takes you back, and just to see that was something. 8 months of shooting. I had shot approximately 3 hours of footage, and that was from inside the buildings. And that 3 hours I had to edit down to 14 minutes.
Sansevero also talked about the controversy behind the historic buildings. Some people feel they should be torn down, others preserved.
There's always been a conflict with the community as far as what they should do with the property, with the remaining buildings that are decaying. I believe, there was hundreds of buildings there, and some of them are just completely, collapsing, and what you'd see in the film. So, community members, some people want the buildings down, but it's also a safety concern because of asbestos and, there's health hazards too, so they have to be very careful when looking at that. So I believe they were having an environmental engineering firm. They were looking into the costs, and I believe the last estimate was about $215 million. That would be to clear all the buildings, remove all the asbestos, just level the property, and it's like 368 acres. So it's a lot of property. And the last meeting that they held, the state really wanted to hold off on it because the current state of the economy, and they just did not have the funding for it, or they don't have the funding for it right now. So they just want to hold off on it. So, it's just still in lingo. It's still, these buildings are there, and they're falling down, and people coming up with proposals, and what we can do to the land, and so yeah, it's just an ongoing thing. So who knows? Maybe in some time when we see more money in the state and economy goes up a bit, but it's a very expensive, just to tear all that down. It's like, it's easier to just have it sit there. And it's also, it's part of history, and people want to preserve it. People grew up there, and they've seen these buildings, and it's actually, the grounds are public. You can walk around outside, and it's beautiful.
And Sansevero says after touring the place and filming the property, there are definitely some parts that left a profound impression on him.
Working with Steve Weber, who grew up in the community, and he lived literally right by the place, and one thing he would say, at night you'd be able to hear the screaming of the patients from the ward, and I found that it's very eerie, and that stuck with me. Yeah, also just the remains of people and the lives of these people, and so many of them that just they don't know about. Like in the film, there's a scene with cemeteries, Potter's Field. So we have actually there's two cemeteries, one with hundreds of graves, one with thousands of graves, and this one cemetery just has there's a big mound on the field, and supposedly they just kind of dug a hole and was putting bodies in there, and there's no headstones at all, just a giant cross at the end of the cemetery. And I just find that interesting. Who are these people's relatives? Who are these people? There's so many mysteries there, and that just really stuck with me. It's very powerful, and you just can't help but think that when you're walking around. But, I showed exactly the state of the place currently, and I gave some history about Kings Park, and I tried to just tie it all together. So hopefully people will find it interesting, and yeah, check it out.
For more information and to find out how you can see the film, go to www.briansansevero.com. Chris Collora reporting.